This is a reality check for new financial advisors or up and coming budding financial advisors. I want to go over this because I think a lot of the podcasts that are out there geared towards financial advisory leave a lot to be desired in terms of the reality of the world at hand. So let me share with you a couple. I listened to the Kitces podcast, which I'm a huge fan of. I love Kitces' podcast without question. It's a wonderful resource. You absolutely should subscribe and listen to it. He'll interview a bunch of financial advisors, and there's one constant variable that just goes through these podcasts a lot that you as a new financial advisor have got to be wary of. A lot of the people who are going the route of fee only, the kind of I do it right, I'm a fiduciary kind of thing. They started in their parents' firms. Now, listen, what's the other guys? Alan Moore from XY Planning Network. I'm telling you, it sounds great what these guys are offering in terms of get out there, help out people, do this. I'm telling you right now, it sounds great. But a lot of these people are starting, they've been able to get clients. They've been able to get notoriety, at least some leads from their folks firm. I'm telling you, I listened to it all. It bothers me because a lot of the most diligent people about fee only, we're going to change the world and all that. They did that on the back of their parents. A lot of times their dads. Where now they separate themselves and are doing it differently, and that's great without question. That's great for them. I'm glad they're doing it. I'm glad they're doing it differently because the industry needs to change big time. The problem is that the industry doesn't need to change big time from a like the evil commission thing to now we're just going to charge you fees instead, because that's even worse, frankly. And 20 years from now, we'll recognize that. Hopefully not that long, but 20 years from now. So what happened was the commissions where everyone hot to trot for commissions. Now somehow that changed where everyone's hot to trot for fees. In 20 years, I'm hoping 2 years from now, people recognize the insanity of paying somebody $50,000 a year in investment management fees. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And that's great, though, if you can do that, if you had a client base, a reservoir you can draw on from your previous firm or your dad's notoriety or whatever it is. That's freaking awesome. You can now go start your business, be more moral, be a fiduciary on the back of your pops. I mean, and look, if you want to do that and you're offering value for service, I can no problem with that whatsoever. I mean, I'm a libertarian, man, almost an anarchist. People can make the decisions they want to choose. If they want to pay you $50,000 a year, I literally don't care. As long as it's up to them. It's a choice. But my thing for new guys, you're not going to have the same. You don't have the same reservoir. You don't. You're not going to have the same notoriety. You're not going to be able to hang your shingle out in front of the Main Street and say, "Here I am, Joe Schmo Financial Planning," because no one knows who you are. You don't have your dad's laurels or your mom's laurels to rely on. You don't. So you got to do it differently. And I'm telling you right now, there's going to be this false, I think, optimism that says, "Look, these guys are doing it." This lady, she brought in $30 million in a year's time. It's not going to happen to you. It's just not, man. No one. I mean, I'm just telling you. Look, I've been in this business a long time. I'll never forget when I was at Smith Barney, and we had this guy in our training class who came out the gate, was freaking hopping. And the reason was because his dad was in the business. His dad threw him all these bones, and so Smith Barney was loving on this guy. He was from New Orleans, I think, someplace down south. And Smith Barney for our training class, like, oh man, look at Joe Schmo, he's kicking butt, taking names. Why aren't you guys doing that? And the reason was his dad threw him these bones. And again, nothing wrong with that, but he was getting big fees, big commissions, and he was doing it right. He was annuitizing his book, is what they say in the business. That simply means if you annuitize your book, you're taking your client's money and you're getting charged a retainer fee of 1% of assets under management. And if you annuitize it, that can be significantly more profitable to you as the advisor. Significantly more profitable to you as the advisor. What does that mean? Significantly less profitable to your client, because someone's paying those fees. It ain't Smith Barney, it's client. So significantly more profitable to you. I don't know how you can then turn around and say you're a fiduciary if you're making it significantly more profitable to you by annuitizing your book, which is you're charging these retainer fees on a regular basis called assets under management. How is that better for the client than to just charge a front end commission being done with it? It's not. I mean, it's just not. It's silly. But you're starting out, and everyone's saying the model is to be a fiduciary, to be righteous, to be this, that, the other. I'm like, well, okay, that's fine. But the people who are the most banging the table, like Khrushchev at the UN, are not being that way. They're acting. They're saying they're fiduciaries, but they're annuitizing their book, and that's not righteous towards the client. It's not. And on top of that, they were fed bones. Now, however they're fed bones, I don't know. And I'm not here disparaging them, but let's just put it as it is. It's a fact that a lot of these people were fed leads and assets that you aren't, my new friend, financial advisor, aren't going to get. So if you're comparing yourself to them, you've got to stop, because you're never going to be getting 30 million in your first year. It's never going to happen. So a couple things. You've got to recognize the value of things like YouTube. All right, I'm just telling you right now, man, you've got to recognize the value. Now, the problem that you're going to have if you work for a big firm is that they're never going to let you go independent enough where you can actually have any kind of idea to be yourself. You can't. You can't say what you want to say because the firm's going to regulate you, and rightly so. It's the firm's goodwill, the firm's authority. They don't want you going there and cutting it at the knees because you're a fly-by-night guy. They don't want the risk. Obviously, they don't want they want you to take all the risk in your career, but they don't want to give you any ability in terms of being yourself. They're going to give you this standard operating procedure, follow the structure that they tell you, and you're going to have to follow that. But how do you do that? Cold call? Cold walk? I mean, how long is it going to, you think you're going to get $30 million in assets by cold calling today? You think you're going to get $30 million of assets by cold walking today? It's not going to happen. It's just not, man. You're not. Not in a year time, not in 2 years time. Like Kitsa says in his last interview he did, many financial advisors take 30 years before they get $30 million in assets, if even that. It's just, it's a fight, my friends. You got to fight. Don't listen to these people who make it sound like, hey, I just showed up and people started calling me. I don't know how I did it. It's not like that. So you got to have your own unique perspective. You got to be independent. You can't work for a firm and expect to be unique. You can't. It's like being in the military, man. You can't join an infantry platoon and expect that you can be your own person. You're not. You're one of a team. Every person has a role, and every role has got to work seamlessly. It's got to be a well-oiled machine, which means there's no opportunity for independence. You can't. And the same thing working for a big firm. So if I were you and I was starting out, I wouldn't work for a firm. Just because there's no way you can be independent. And because there's no way you can be independent, there's no way you're going to succeed. It's just not. Yeah, there are some guys who do. I get that. But the people who succeed nowadays aren't doing it on their own terms. They're doing it by through their pops sending them bones, or they're doing it through attaching themselves to a team, an older advisor who's going to retire, who's going to annuitize his book. He wants to take new blood. Look, I got no problem with that, but that's a similar concept. Is you're going to be doing his work while he's playing golf and whatnot, and then when he theoretically retires or sells you his business, which will never happen, you can get in there and get his assets. And nothing wrong with that. I got no problem with it. Do not, I'm telling you right now, do not fall for the assumption that someone is going to sell their business to you. Does it happen? Sure. Does it happen as much as people say that it's going to be? No. I'm telling you, the idea, look, man, the numbers are legion on financial advisors who went to someone else's firm under the assumption they're going to take over ownership, and it never happened. Now, there are people that do. I know that for a fact. I know some, absolutely. I was recruited by a couple. The vast, vast, vast majority, the advisor, the owner, they don't want to relinquish. They don't want to. And in fact, the reason is because it's a pretty easy job, and they like what they do. And so they're like, man, I'm 75 years old. Why would I want to get out of this? I'd show up 20 hours a week, do what I like to do with my clients, I'd go play golf or go yachting the other days. Why would I want to sell that? Don't fall for that either. That, I can just find some guy who's going to sell me his book. No, it's not going to happen, man. I mean, it does happen on occasion. Look, I don't want to say it will never happen. It's just not like they would like you to believe that there's a bunch of retiring advisors, old men with these huge books of business that they're looking to offload so they can retire, to Bahamas. Hell, these guys are already doing that, man. They've already made the money. They already got enough money to enjoy. And they say, why would I do that when retiring and selling my business isn't going to make me any better off. I'm already doing that. I'm already working part-time. Look at any partners at these firms. They're not working that hard. They're still going to the Bahamas. For them to sell it to you, is it going to change their lives at all other than make them bored? So they're not going to do it. So don't fall for that. So you can't fall for the idea that you're going to buy someone's book out from under them and that's going to build your business. You can't fall for the idea that you're just going to put your shingle out there and say you are you with your podcast or your Facebook page or your YouTube channel and people are going to start doing it. You can't. You can't fall for the idea that you can cold call or cold walk your way to 30 million assets in 2 years. You can't. You can't do any of that. You can't. And you certainly can't fall for the idea that you're going to work for a big firm, Smith Barney or something like that. Smith Barney's not around anymore, right? It's Morgan Stanley. And that you're going to have any success at all. You're not, man. I mean, the only way you're going to have success is by joining a team that's already established and doing their grunt work. And again, nothing wrong with that. I have no problem with that. But you will sacrifice independence for doing that. There's nothing wrong with going Vanguard and learning the ropes. That's how I started, but you will sacrifice independence for doing that as well. And if you're trying to come in this business as a new financial advisor who wants to set the world on fire with your own unique perspective, you can't go to these firms. So here's what you should do. The best marketing tool is what I'm doing right now is YouTube. Without question. Without question, the best marketing tool available. Don't script it too much. Don't try to be all hoity-toity. Just speak the truth as you know it is, in your own way. In your own way. You don't have to get your monkey suit on like I used to do the first couple months. You don't. You just got to speak truth that people can understand and like. You don't have to do anything more than that. This is the best marketing tool out there. So much better than building a cold walking prospect list that you're calling because you've been told, I got to talk to you 7 times of no's before I'm heard yes. No, forget all that. Let the people come to you. The people are only going to come to you when you have a repertoire of content out there on YouTube and or Facebook and your blog posts and your podcast. I'm telling you right now, blog is not the way to go to start with. Everyone that does blogs are easy. I mean, I know typing is not that easy and writing isn't easy, but man, there's a million blogs a Sunday, and you will never, ever, 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 ever get to the top of the search engine result page of a blog. Ever. I'm just telling you right now. Vanguard, Fidelity, all those firms have Kitsis themselves has beat you to the punch. You'll never get to the top of the search engine results page, ever, blogging. But you can on YouTube and you can on podcasting for sure, right? Now, podcasting is a little bit different in terms of search engine result page. You're relying on Apple, iTunes, whatnot. When you type in financial podcast, that's going to be a little bit tougher. But YouTube's not. YouTube is the absolute Wild West for you to get out there and start being independent and building that content base, that repertoire of assets. This video is an asset to show people what you can do. And if people are going to get to like you or they won't. And if they like you, they'll call you. If they won't, if they don't, they won't. But this is how you build your base now. It's not cold calling. It's doing this right here. I'm just telling you right now, do it and do it every single day, man. Don't just sit there and say, I'm going to do it once a week. No, and don't just sit there and say, I got this well-scripted thing. Nope. No one wants that. No one wants a robot. No one wants the same stuff that everybody else is doing via blog posts on Vanguard. No one wants that. They want the originality, uniqueness, but they want to know you because many of these people are interested in hiring a professional. They're interested in it, and you got to do the due diligence, the grunt work. In fact, what you probably should do is make sure you give yourself 2 years. So the first year, say to yourself, I'm not going to make any money, none whatsoever. So how are you going to get by? Well, maybe go work at Walmart, changing tires or something like that. For $10 an hour to keep your health insurance. Do that so you can leave your work at work. You don't have to take it home. Come back and do a YouTube channel and do a blog post, do a podcast. So you're working 40 at Walmart with benefits and all that, $10 an hour, you're working 40 here. I mean, that's 80 hours a week. Well, welcome to the thing. You don't have the ability to generate clients from your dad. You don't. So you got to do something else, which is working your tail off. And true successful financial advisors who started in the realm of cold calling back in the 80s and 90s, they worked 80 hours a week. I'm telling you right now. You go to any Smith Barney bullpen back in the day, those guys, the new guys got in there early and they left late. We're talking 8 to 8 shifts easily. If you weren't calling at night, you were doomed because night's when you get to catch people without question. Go to any bullpen. The seasoned financial advisors left early. The young financial advisors stayed late. The seasoned financial advisors came in late. The young financial advisors came in early. That's the way it had to be. And you had to make 100 calls, 120, 150 calls a day. banging them out one after the other. And no one wants to do that, which is why the failure is so immense. But now you can't even do that because of do not call list, because cold calling, you got cell phones, you got caller ID, the whole thing. You're not going to make any traffic cold calling, which means you got to find another alternative. Yeah, cold walking's fine, going knocking on doors like Ed Jones. I don't even know if they still do it, probably. That's a little bit risky. People are so scared today to open their door, which is silly because we're so safe today, but whatever. Co-walking businesses still has opportunity. I'm telling you, I think co-walking businesses still make sense. But you could co-walk businesses and maybe get 25 business cards from the lady out who's managing out front, who's the assistant, administrative assistant, or you could just do YouTube videos. I mean, come on, what's the better way to go? But remember, you're not gonna get the bones handed to you from your parents or from the big firms or from your the advisor that says they're going to sell you your firm. Don't follow that. Get out. Don't join a big firm. Now, joining a big firm is good if you need to get some experience. A Vanguard experience for me was wonderful. I would say what you should do though is go the banking route. I tell you, the banking route is better for training from a sales perspective and what regular people are dealing with. Vanguard stuff is different. The Vanguard people who go there are not the typical people that you're going to need to know. Now, it does give you the chops in terms of knowledge base of financial planning and investment management, absolutely. So I'm grateful for that. But I'm more grateful for my banking experience. I'm getting to know what regular people are going through relative to not just investments, but to be able to talk the talk. You got to be able to talk what regular people are going through. And so banking, a platform guy I'm telling you right now, you'll learn so much more about what average people are contending with than you'll ever work at Vanguard for sure. So if you want to kind of get OJT on the job training, go the bank route. Probably get paid a little bit more too, as a matter of fact, and you'll learn better, and you'll get to meet people local to your neck of the woods. The platform reps know the people local, and that way, when you go on your own, now you might not be able to take those clients with you. You can't solicit them, but if they follow you, the bank can't do anything about that. And so Jane Schmo, she was your client. She always talked about I don't know, doing home equity loans, but now she said, I remember you from the bank. I just changed jobs. I got $50,000. Can you help me with it? You're like, yeah, absolutely, because she liked you. All right, so that's the new financial advisor. Do not get caught up in the podcasts that are out there. Kids, again, his podcast is great. But a lot of the people he interviews have a whole perspective that's not you, my friend. If you're coming from digging from ditches to doing this, and you're starting from scratch, you can't listen to what those guys are saying as a way for you to say, man, that's how I can build my business. It's not. And then again, you also can't get disappointed when you're not as quick off the gun. I tell you, I'll never get that guy, a young guy too, in New Orleans, and it was depressing, man. You're like, why is this guy? And then you were able to put two and two together. You say, oh, his dad. But it was depressing. I remember that guy, and everyone's sweating him. You're like, that guy didn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. Why is he? I don't get it. And then you recognize what was going on. It was frustrating. And then it could really burn you up where you don't want to do it anymore. Because you're like, I'm out here. I was calling 100 people a day, cold walk. I was doing everything on the weekends. And I wasn't getting any traction like this guy was. And it could really set you back, as I say, I forget this, I'm failed. It almost did. It almost did for me. And it didn't, thank goodness. But it came close, man. I almost stopped doing my CFP studies because I was like, I'm not making headway. Thankfully, I did. Thankfully, I kept at it because that guy was an illusion. It was never going to be achieved the way, from my perspective. So the guys you listen to on the Kits' podcast, not all of them, some of them are actually you want to listen to the podcast. What's the name? XY Planning Network podcast. Listen to it. But again, a lot of the guys who are very interested in being niche oriented, very interested in doing it right, being correct, politically correct, of saying, hey, who are trying. A lot of the guys. Let's just put it this way: a lot of the guys are coming from a different holier than thou, almost to some degree. Like, hey, we're going to do it the right way. Everybody else is doing it the wrong way. Yeah, they can do it the right way because they already have a built up repertoire that they can draw back on, which you and I don't have. And you got to build it from scratch. You got to fight. You got to fight. You got to fight. That means every single client is a potential. There's no one that's not worth your time. And when you're starting out, nobody. And that's okay. You can't sit there and say, I'm new to this. I'm going to only charge, I'm going to say, I'm only taking clients who got $1,000,000. Man, I'm telling you, don't do that. Don't do that. Start from scratch. Fight for everything that's out there. Recognizing you're going to make some mistakes along the way. Yeah, that sucks. Guess what? Everyone has to make mistakes to learn, to do better, to not to make mistakes. I hate to think of the mistakes I made, but I'm better for it. You got to fight for it, man, which means if you got to go work at Walmart, changing tires, like I said, changing oil for 40 hours a week, so that way you can come back doing this and calling people at night on a Saturday, you got to do it. Just hang in there. Hang in there. Go to AaronHelmsley.com. Darcy Brown Helmsley, I think. She's Aaron Helmsley's daughter, and she's taking over that business. Learn the sales techniques from a mind and mental perspective. It's wonderful, man, because what will happen is you'll get depressed. And when you got to get depressed, you got to say, no, I got to keep at it because I can do good things here, because you're going to do good things for you and for your clients. We need people out there doing good things for the clients, and I expect that you can be one of them. If you're watching this, you certainly can. All right, see you next time.